Each month, $3 supporters at Patreon and Subscribestar get to ask me anything, and $5 supporters can give me a shout out. So let's look at the questions supporters asked in May, and if you'd like to ask a question for this month, the links are below. Let's start over on Patreon, where Sid Padmanabhan asks, what are your thoughts on stock buybacks? People on the left complain that they're market manipulation. Yeah, they say that about everything they don't understand, which is pretty much all of economics. Stock buybacks are when a company buys back their own shares on the stock market. So they buy ownership in themselves, and that's somehow bad? I covered this in my video, Eye-Gouging Idiocy, where some moron reading Robert Reich made the same claim. Check it out. Buybacks reduce the number of outstanding shares, thereby increasing the value of the remaining shares. They can also be a signal to investors that they have sufficient capital set aside for emergencies and that they'll be able to make it through a short-term crisis. Stock buybacks reduce the balance sheet while at the same time reducing the number of shares outstanding. It's not a good long-term strategy for making profits, but it can be a good idea in a short-term economic crisis or in a time when there's fear of one. Investing in R&D or expansion or increasing employment or output is something that can harm the short-term stock price. So it's generally done at a time when the stock market is booming, when that short-term reduction will be outweighed by the increases due to the booming market. But in a crisis, the company needs to invest in short-term projects so they can reposition themselves for the changing market. That can depress stock prices. Buybacks can give a short-term boost to stock values, allowing them to invest in those short-term projects that they need without depressing the stock. Outside of a crisis, a company may have a system in place for regular buybacks, but if they go beyond that, it may signal to the market that they might be in an insecure position. Stockholders may even punish them if they go beyond their share repurchase plan. But that actually wouldn't be the case if the stock is undervalued. Then the company would, in fact, have returned that unrealized value to the stockholders. So, in short, stock buybacks can help reallocate capital in the short term, but they're not a replacement for long-term investment. Stick this into the same category as price gouging as far as economic ignoramuses are concerned. And a shout out from Darth Vega. I just released a video on my channel called Ray Comfort, Evolution, Deconversion, and Fear-Based Evangelism. It's a video about my 3 biggest issues with Ray: his misunderstanding of evolution, the offensive way he handled Rhett and Link's deconversion, and his evangelism program, The Way of the Master. If you didn't see it, The Way of the Master is a really idiotic video he made with Kirk Cameron, who was apparently desperately seeking a career after growing pains. You might have heard us discussing this on the latest live stream. Ray Comfort is a creationist from New Zealand who's also known as Banana Man because in Way of the Master he made this laughably stupid segment about the banana. The banana, he said, is the atheist's nightmare because it's so clearly made for us in terms of size, shape, taste, nutrition, and so on that it must be a product of intelligent design. Of course, the stupid thing about that is that humans made the banana through centuries of artificial selection. In particular, the Cavendish banana is the one we generally eat and enjoy, and the one he used for the demonstration, although there are others used for cooking like plantain bananas. Cavendish bananas were actually cloned from the original plant around 1834. The wild banana is small, difficult to peel, tastes pretty bad, and has these large, hard, inedible seeds. Getting back to Comfort, another one of his staggeringly bad displays was when he and Cameron debated a couple of atheists and insisted that they could prove the existence of God without relying on the Bible. He and Cameron did this by repeatedly going to the Old Testament, particularly the Ten Commandments, and denying evolution. Also, intending for this to be released in schools, Comfort published his own version of Charles Darwin's Origin of Species, with a foreword containing long-debunked creationist arguments. Although he claimed nothing had been removed from Darwin's original work, he had in fact deleted 4 chapters that had contained Darwin's strongest evidence. So anyway, check out Darth Vega's video. Link is in the description. Let's head on over to Subscribestar, where Thomas Urbanski asks, recently was reminded on Elon Musk's quote, "The government is simply the biggest corporation with a monopoly on violence and where you have no recourse." I don't know if there was a greater context. Still, I'm curious about your thoughts on this statement. I mean, it sounds right to me. I've always marveled at how someone can screech on and on about how horrible monopolies are and then defend government monopolies on police, roads, fire departments, power, cable, all sorts of things. I did a search for the quote, and the first result was a Reason article. It's from 2021, when Biden was pushing a $2 trillion spending deal, initially known as Build Back Better, and then, laughably, the Inflation Reduction Act. Here are some more of his comments. I think the role of government should be that of a referee, but not a player on the field. Government should try to get out of the way and not impede progress. The rules and regulations keep increasing every year. Rules and regulations are immortal. They don't die. Occasionally you see some law with a sunset provision, but really, otherwise, the vast majority of rules and regulations live forever. Eventually it just takes longer and longer, and it's harder to do things. There's not really an effective garbage collection system for removing rules and regulations, and so gradually this hardens the arteries of civilization, where you're able to do less and less over time. So I think government should be trying really hard to get rid of rules and regulations that perhaps had merit at some time, but don't have merit currently. Honestly, I would just can this whole bill. Don't pass it. Again, sounds right to me. Finally, Agony asks, I read a blog post about there being some signs of tech-savvy people trying to spy on the Tor network using middle relays. How private is the Tor network, and are there setting changes I can make to increase my privacy? Of all the ways to try and hack the Tor network, that's gotta be the dumbest. The way Tor works is, you encrypt your connection, and you set up a number of relays to your destination. You encrypt everything in reverse. The data packet for the exit relay, that encrypted packet from the middle relay and the exit relay to give it to, then again for the guard relay, telling it which middle relay to give it to. So you send the packet to the first relay, the guard relay. This relay knows your IP address, but it has no other clues about what you're doing. All it can do is decrypt its layer and then send it to the middle relay. The middle relay knows nothing about your IP address or your destination or anything else. All it can do is decrypt its layer and send it on to the next relay. It has no idea if that relay is the exit relay or if the relay it got it from is the guard relay, because there can be any number of middle relays. All it's doing is receiving a bunch of garbage, decrypting it to a bunch of other garbage, and then sending it on its way. Then the exit relay decrypts it and sends it on to its destination. If it's a destination on the internet, it'll see the decrypted packet, which might still be encrypted with TLS, and sends it onto the website, but having no idea who you are. If it's an onion address, the request will still be encrypted, and it'll just be sent to the dark website. When it receives the response, it sends everything back in reverse. It's the fact that you're going through at least 3 relays that breaks the ability to track everything. The biggest potential risk is actually the exit relay. If the website or whatever you're connecting to is unencrypted, then the exit relay can see the request, and that might include data about who you are. So it's still important to make sure the important sites you connect to have strong TLS encryption. When in doubt, check the certificate and make sure it's valid for the site, which the browser should be doing anyway. As for securing it, I'm going to assume you're using the Tor browser, although it's similar if you're using something else like Tails or Orbot. One way is to set up a bridge. This can help hide the fact that you're using Tor to prevent you from being blocked from it by your ISP or detected by your government. Setting it up is really just a button click away, and you can select from different transports to make it look random or like you're browsing a major website. One specifically makes it look like you're browsing a Microsoft site, and so on. It's also a good idea to get a new identity every time you go to a different website. One way to de-anonymize traffic is to examine it across all sorts of connections. Use a different circuit, and you foil that. Another way is to use it along with a VPN. The way to do it is connect your VPN first, then make your Tor circuit on top of that. So even if someone does compromise the Tor circuit, you have the VPN protecting you. And the biggest piece of advice, don't fall victim to the Peltzman effect. Take all the same precautions to prevent malware and spying and tracking, and keep up the same safe browsing practices as you would the rest of the time. And that's another month gone. Thanks so much for watching. Until next month, comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.